Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Today I am so excited to be bringing you my May wrap-up and favorites. As I always say at the beginning of these, this will not be an extensive book-by-book go-through of all the books that I read. I read 46 books this month, which, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that is too many books to talk about in one video. And what I actually do is I do weekly wrap-ups where I'm usually talking about between like 9 to 15 books. So I will link that playlist up here. You can start all the way back in January if you want, or you can just start with May and, you know, watch your way through every single book that I've read. I do, you know, at least a couple sentences about some, and some there are 15 to 20 minute rants or gushes about whatever I'm feeling. So I'm very excited to talk about my favorites. And I also want to do a reminder, I've been trying to remind people of this more, because it has been making a difference in my life to do this. But I do have links down below to every book that I talk about. I mean, in the weekly wrap-ups for sure, but also if there's a video and I'm talking about a book, I have a link to it down below. I do make a small commission off of books that I sell through my Amazon store. So you know what? I'm not going to be afraid to pimp those out here, because if you're going to buy the book anyway, and you're going to buy it off of my recommendation, it'll help us both out, right? It's great. So anyway, we're going to go through the stats here, and then we'll talk about my top. I think I have 6 to talk about. Well, or maybe 5. I have 5 favorites, and 3 of them are new 6-star reads, which is awesome. Like, May was such a great month for me, and I'm so excited to jump into it. So let's go to it right now. My hair is driving me nuts. Okay, so like I stated, I read 46 books this month, and that was a total of 14,431 pages, which is great. We are chugging right along. We're up to 191 books read this year so far, which is great. I think over halfway to my goal of 365. Yes, I should be over halfway to that goal, which is awesome. I always choose 365. This is the 3rd year that I've done that, because I believe that a book a day keeps reality away. That's my little saying. Isn't it cute? I thought so too. Okay, so these books were in the following formats. I had 19 physical books, 13 audiobooks, which was awesome. I love continuing to push up that audiobook number. 20 ebooks and 5 arcs. It's not as many arcs. I did do a mini rant about that in one of my weekly wrap-ups, where I just feel like getting arcs has been like a little bit tougher lately, but then also on the same coin saying I don't have as much time to like read as I did, so why am I whining about it? You know, we're complex people. It's a thing. The ratings for these books were, I had 3 6-star books, 7 5-star books, 5 4.5, 14 4-star books, 9 3.5-star books, 6 3-star books, and I had 1 each of 2.5 and 2-star, which I don't hand those out too often, so you know there was some sketchy books. The subgenres of this, we had a whopping 18 contemporary, 7 dark, 7 historical, 4 sci-fi, 2 erotic, 2 fan fiction, 1 dystopian, and 1 paranormal. The top tropes that I had, which are usually kind of the same from month to month, which I also think is interesting. We had age gap, BDSM, forced proximity, virgin, and grumpy sunshine. Those were kind of the tip tops there. So yeah, that's it. Let's get into the favorites already, because we have a lot to talk about. I'm so excited. Okay, so the first 6-star book that I had, which I know will be controversial, but it will be controversial mostly because this is one of the books that is what we call overhyped. But here's the thing. For me, it wasn't overhyped yet for me, because I had been completely oblivious to this book. We'll just say what it is. It's Fourth Wing. It's going to be shiny. It's going to be shiny. We're going to put it up here because it's going to be shiny and sparkly. Well, we'll just slide it into the spot right there. Perfect. We're just going to put it up there so that we know where it's at. This wasn't overhyped for me when I read it, because again, I'd been completely oblivious to this book. I just wasn't paying attention. I had seen this cover around. I'm actually kind of kicking myself. I didn't ask for an arc. I know who Rebecca Yarros is, but I've only read one of her books, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And so I had no idea what to expect, but I saw my friends were going to be doing it for a book club, and the day it dropped, I was like, you know what? I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to see it be overhyped as everyone reads it and then be disappointed in it. So I went ahead and grabbed the audiobook, which the audiobook, as I've said, when I originally read this, was also a huge motivating factor, because the audiobook narrator is my all-time favorite narrator, Rebecca Soler. Now, there is also, I had this pointed out by multiple friends, and they're not wrong. Like, I am not saying like they're wrong because I went back and listened and it's correct. It's clear that Rebecca had some kind of a cold or congestion going for a good percentage of the book. And although I particularly feel that I didn't notice one whit when I was reading it. And I think it's maybe because, again, I've listened to so many of her books. I've listened to her have a cold before, and it didn't bother me. It didn't, but it totally will for some people. That is a absolutely legitimate reason to be turned off by an audiobook, because I get turned off by weird mouth sounds, or when the narrator forgets to like cut out their like breaths. That bothers me. So anyway, no shade to anyone who that was an issue, because it's been an issue for me. But I don't need to make excuses for why I liked this, because this is my channel and I had a blast with this book. And that's what it comes down to, is that I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know this was fucking dragons, okay? I had no clue. I was oblivious to this book besides seeing it on some friends' TBRs. I saw the cover and like I didn't like notice the dragon. Like I just saw like a symbol. You know, I didn't notice at all. So once I was seeing like, oh, we're going to do a fantasy book club for this and there's dragons in it, I was like, what? So yeah, I sat down, listened to this within a 24-hour period, and I was blown away. I was taken to another place. I was back in my dragon girly experience. As a kid, I loved dragons as a kid and a young teen, and I was blown on my butt by this book, okay? It was fantastic. I feel like I don't need to explain what it's about at this point, because everyone has. But in regards to like the romance aspect of it, you'll also hear people say like there is romance that begins, I say, from the like 40% mark on. I mean, to me, it's always obvious who the person's going to be. We do have kind of a like possibility of a love triangle early on. You think that? I was like, oh, I'm glad this didn't turn into a love triangle, because I didn't want to be reading that. That wasn't what I was here for. I really don't like love triangles, like at all. I don't. Menage, fine. Love triangle, no. But again, as soon as the dragons showed up in this, I was done. I loved the dragons. Are there issues with it? Does everything that happens make sense? No. Have I, since reading it, been pointed out kindly and not so kindly by different people all the issues with it? Sure. Will some people who read it because I hyped it up not like it? Absolutely. Because here's the thing. This wasn't overhyped for me. Didn't have any expectations. Didn't know what the fuck was gonna happen in it. So for me, it wasn't overhyped. It was just, ooh, what is this? We are now at the point with this book that it is reaching saturation and the hype is here, right? So now anything that anyone says, you either have a really bad feeling about it or you have a really good feeling about it. And, you know, the opportunity to go in as blind as I was is probably passing a lot of people by. But I loved the dragons. I love the scenarios. Our heroine, I thought she was really smart. I enjoyed watching her have to use things other than physical strength to handle scenarios. She does. One of the criticisms that I do agree with, like really, I just didn't notice it while I was reading it. I'm not retroactively going to take stars off for noticing things. I'm just not. Is that she has this disability in the beginning that makes it so she doesn't want to be going into, you know, this school for the dragons. Are we trying to do that? And what I liked is like in the beginning, she's trying to use her smarts and use her strength to keep her from having to go head to head evenly with someone who's stronger than her. But there are also parts of the book where she is training physically, and it's like her training apparently has removed parts of her disability. because she now is no longer worrying about those things. And I, retroactively, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, because you can't just train a disability out of someone. And that's a wee bit offensive to even think that you can. Again, I liked when we're seeing the aspects of where it's like, I can't do the same as that, so I'm going to use my brains and I'm going to use these talents to skirt around this person who's coming at me with brawn. And I liked that. And there also is a point in this book where the hero and dragon come up with a mobility aid for her that brought me to tears, because I was like, oh my gosh, talk about a practical help that will help level up her game to equal of other people. It literally, it brought me to tears, because I was like, I don't have mobility issues. I don't have a disability that holds me back from doing what others do, but I have enough friends who do, and I've witnessed enough of how that can be life-changing for someone to be impressed with that. But that's only coming from an abled person's view on it, and I can't speak to an own voices thing of it. But I believe that Rebecca Yarros, I don't know if she's basing everything about that disability on herself, but I remember hearing that from someone. That is hearsay from me. I don't know that for positive, so there's that. But anyway, I had a great time. Again, the romance aspect of it, I really loved it. It speaks to, I wouldn't call it, I would call it enemies to lovers for the fact that they're from rival families. I don't see direct enemies to lovers action happening between them in the story, because to me, who our love interest, he pretty much is ignoring a lot of those things right from the beginning. And when I got to the end and saw some of the secrets that are revealed, to me then it made sense that he wasn't so hardcore enemy to her, that them being from rival families would lead you to believe that they would be. That's an aspect that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, where they're like, it says it's enemies to lovers, but they don't act like it. And I'm like, yeah, but the reveals at the end, it wouldn't make sense if he was being as enemy towards her as she thinks he will be. Because once we have that reveal about some stuff that he knows that we don't know, him being so against her, wouldn't make any sense. But again, I don't see a lot of people bringing that up, and I'm speaking very vaguely so as not to spoil anything. And then the spice level of this, I have it as a 2.5. Now, there aren't a ton of scenes that happen. I think there's only 2, but the scenes we get are very naughty. They are a high spice level of what's happening, and there's magic involved in these steamy scenes, and physical manifestations of their lust and what they're feeling when it's happening, and that just grinds my gears. Cranks my shaft. I don't know. Let me use some tractor analogies, but I just loved it. So yeah, I would say that it's a 2.5 on my personal spice scale, but it is, very much towards the end of this. This is a slow burn between them, but I really felt the love. Again, other people aren't going to agree with me, but I really felt it. And then when we have our reveals and we have a bit of a setback for them, I very much look forward to what the hero is going to do to win the heroine back over in Iron Flame will be the next book, and it's coming in November. So we don't have as long to wait as we maybe would for a more conventional, traditionally published romance. So I definitely appreciate that we're maybe getting a little more of a romance schedule for this fantasy romance. So yes, this was a 6-star book for me, and I loved it. And right after that, I jumped into another book that one of my friends had given 6 stars, and I'm so glad that I did, because I was going to slump so hard after Fourth Wing. So literally the next book I picked up was Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston, and this of course was recommended by Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. She had found it on Instagram, and when I heard what it was about and I heard some of the things Crystal was saying about it, I was like, instant yes, happening now. So this is a single mother. She is widowed. She recently, she lost her husband a year ago. There's no love loss really there for losing him, but she does have 2 pretty young children. One is 5 and one is barely 2. I'm not even sure if she is 2 yet. And she's been made guardian of their body, like, you know, there's because there's two different kinds of guardian. I'm not going to know the legal jargon, but basically her husband's family is like the other kind of a guardian. And if they decide that the children aren't being kept safely or kept well, they can have them removed from her. And they are also the ones in charge of her son, who is, you know, the like heir to this, but only a baby, you know, only a little boy. They are in charge of his, you know, money and his properties and everything. And so our heroine is really at the mercy of these family members, and they've left her alone for her year of mourning. But now that she's coming out of it, they don't think she is a proper mother. They think she's too soft on the kids, and they are going to come for them. And so she is hoping to be able to put up a fight to be able to keep her kids. But to do that, she's going to have to be a little bit deceitful. And so she enlists her best friend's brother, who is a bit of a rogue. We have Nate, who is in a bit of money trouble. She offers him a sum of money to pretend to be her fiance and to like convince these family members that she is stable, that she's going to have a new father figure for these kids, and that she also wants to have literally a legal case to keep them with her. The thing is, as was kind of clear to me and also becomes clear to like Nate, is he's like, if these people don't back down, what are you going to do? Because we're not planning to actually get married. It's supposed to be like a fake engagement. And if we're not planning to actually get married, what are you going to do if they don't back down? But we don't go that far right away. First, his job is to come and stay for a couple weeks in the summer, seem to be her fiance, try to convince these people who are also going to be coming to stay for a month in the summer, and convince them that she is good. But these people are cranky and mean, and they have really horrible ideas about how to raise these children, and possibly they are abusing the money that they are in guardianship over. And so Nate, who's very reluctant to do this, he doesn't want to do it at all, but he owes her a favor from a few years back before she ever was married, and she's calling in his debt because she's desperate, and she's like, I need you to do this for me. My children are more important than whatever your little like issues are. Like my kids are important, and we need to do this. And so he agrees, and pretty much as soon as he gets there, he starts realizing just, number one, like what she's up against and how much this is going to devastate her and how much it's going to be bad for the kids if they get put in the hands of these greedy, cruel relatives, and it would just crush their spirits. And Nate, he is a very lovable rogue, and he very quickly is run over by these kids to her. And it is one of my favorite things, y'all. Like, we have another single mom to talk about in this wrap up as well. I have the biggest heart for single moms. I absolutely do. And well, really any single parent, because I think raising kids, it takes a village, let alone, you know, more than one parent. And it's not that some people don't do it perfectly competently, but the ones who do it the best, they usually do have a village around them who help them, because as a single parent, like, they can be a superhero, superhuman in some ways, but it is still tough work. And when you have a village to help you, it helps you be a better parent. And the way that Nate, you know, he's gonna kind of take this as like a vacation, get to pull one over on these people. He very quickly is won over by these children and just falls head over heels in love with them. Like, I'm gonna try to make it through this month's wrap up and not sob too much. Oh, but between this book and another one coming up, like, I will probably cry. It's going to happen. But there are such beautiful scenes of him with these kids. And when we're in our heroine's head and seeing just how desperately she wants to protect her babies and how she wants them to feel loved, because she felt very disappointed in her marriage, even though it was an arranged marriage. Like, she thought there was good, like, that they could get along, and really he, you know, just used her as a broodmare and would be off with his mistress and didn't even know his own children's birthdays. And to have her, like, you know, hopes of wanting to make the best of it be crushed that way, and then to insult to injury that he has died and basically, like, given her children into the care of someone else, is just devastating to read about. And just to see her trying to do everything she can, and the only person she has to rely on is this reckless rogue that she doesn't know if he'll be able to help her or not. And it was deeply moving. It was also spicy and delicious, okay? Like, it was a slow-ish burn for these two. But man, once they got going, like, it was so beautiful to read. This one was like a 3 on the spice scale, maybe even like a 3.5 for this one, I think. Ooh, because they had some great scenes in this. And so their passion was so beautiful. And it's just amplified even more by the fact that they want to do well for their kids. And there is a line I'm going to share, and I'm going to cry. And it actually is from the epilogue. And it's many years in the future when we're in our HEA, and Nate is looking at his wife and his 4 beautiful children. So he's had 2 more kids with her over the years, and they're having this celebration, and he's looking at his kids, and he's looking at them, and he's like, I have 4 beautiful children, 2 of them that I made with my wife, and 2 of them that made me. And that just wraps up Nate, guys. Like, he is a lovable rogue who is not expecting anything out of this. He thinks it's a burden. He just wants to get back to living his roguish lifestyle. And then he is stopped dead in his tracks by this desperate woman and her beautiful kids. And it's fantastic. It was beautifully written, and I can't wait to see what this author writes next, because it was very talented. Next, we are taking quite the turn, especially compared to other books that were my favorites this month, which is funny. So also at the beginning of May, we had our 3rd annual Mafia romance readathon, which I just love doing, and we will continue to do for many years in the future, I hope, as long as people are still interested in it. And the issue with this, well, not an issue, is that I hadn't been reading too much Mafia besides series that I was already engaged in. I just hadn't been feeling it. And so I really took the chance with the Mafia Romance Readathon to try some authors that I haven't tried before, and to really see if I could find some new favorites. And I definitely did. It was very successful. You can go back and watch some of my videos about this. But one author that I really wanted to get into was Jagger Cole. And I had been given the first book in a series by his. It's going to be, this series is called, let me sec, I think it's called Dark Hearts. Yeah, Dark Hearts series. And I read Deviant Hearts first. That one was on my TBR, and I read it. And as soon as I finished it, I had seen that Vicious Hearts book 2 had just come out. And I immediately started that one as well. So I gave Deviant Hearts 4.5 stars, and I gave this one 5 stars. And I really liked it. It's probably my favorite Mafia romance I've read this year. I really think that it is. I loved this one. You can read this as a standalone. Absolutely. They're all written to be. But I will say the reason I was excited for this one is because I read Deviant Hearts first. That one is an arranged marriage, and Killian is the head of the Irish Mafia, and he's the one that helps set up that marriage, that's between his niece and a member in the Greek Mafia. And then we have him, who this actually starts with a woman named, oh shucks, what's her name? Una, who is the daughter of an enemy of his, and it actually starts with her going to a sex club where she knows he'll be, getting him alone in a room, losing her virginity to him, and at the very same time that he thrusts into her, she thrusts a knife into him. So she loses her virginity and attempts to kill him all at the same time, and then she runs out of there. She does escape, but very quickly Killian is able to find out who she is. And when he discovers why she was sent after him, well, there's a lot of complicated stuff to go with it, so I don't want to share. But instead of killing her to get revenge, her being the daughter of his enemy, he realizes it could really help him as the head of his mafia if he were to make like a peace treaty with that part of the family. So he's like, look, I'm going to marry the daughter of my enemy to show, number one, that like I'm not above also having to be put into one of these relationships, but also it will hopefully appease the part of my mafia that, you know, still wanted to support this villain, which when you learn about this villain, it's kind of hard for me to see that, but I mean, it is the Mafia, so I guess they don't care what that dude did. So also about Killian, he is a serial killer. I also put this one as morality chain, a revenge story. It has a lot of my trope stickers on it for sure. He is a serial killer, but he has kept it, and not a but like, we love it. He's the head of this mafia. He's also a serial killer. He tracks down released rapists and the P words, and he murders them. He has had the desire to murder within him for many, many years, but he's also smart, and he's not completely ruled by his urges. And so, but he's also in the perfect place where like he can do these things and not get caught, and it gives him an extreme pleasure to be able to viciously murder these horrible men. And so Una starts discovering these parts of him, and their relationship was just so interesting. And yes, the sexual parts of it were very hot. And one of the things Killian discovers about her is that her ploy to, you know, use that sex club to get to him wasn't just because she knew she could get him in a vulnerable place there. She's also into a lot of the things that he's into. So yeah, this one has hand necklaces and primal play and breeding kink, and has a lot of really hot in the bedroom aspects. But what I loved about this, and what I'm really loving about Jagger Cole thus far, is, and this is a male romance author, which was another reason I wanted to read this. I want to read some male romance authors, particularly who write MF. A lot of the male authors I've read, they're usually writing MM. Anyway, sidetrack. Is he has this very brutal writing style about the violent parts of it, and I can really see that in, again, some of the like murder scenes and some of the like attack things happening. But then I feel like he wrote a really great romance between Killian and Una as well. And, you know, outside of the sexy times too, watching how this man who doesn't think he can feel anything starts to have feelings for Una, and yeah, watching where that goes, I really enjoyed. So this one I gave 5 stars. This was a like 4.5 on my spice scale. It has a lot of kink, a lot of gritty stuff to it, so highly recommend. And book 3 in this series, Sinful Hearts, I'm actually getting the arc for that tomorrow, and I'm so excited. That one's going to be about Hades, who is the brother of the hero from the first book. Very excited to read it. All right, next we have another historical, and I'm very, very glad that I enjoyed this one. This is It Started With a Scandal by Julianne Long, and this was recommended in my 12 Recs from 12 Friends, which was a challenge that I started in January this year, and I'm over halfway done with it. I'm really happy about it. But this one was recommended by Jess and Reads Romance, who's one of my besties. And this one is like book 10 in the Penny Royal Green series. So I had read one other book in this series way, way back when. And I didn't even know it was like a part of this series, because it was before I like knew that historical were like in series. Like, that's how long ago that I read it. But she recommended this one to me, and she was absolutely right. This is a 5-star read. So this one, you can read this as a standalone, because also in Penny Royal Green, they're not like all siblings and stuff too. Like, it's really more about like the place. So some of the people are related, some of that. But this one is about an injured and like exiled French prince. And so he has this location where he is healing because he was injured in some work he was doing for the British Crown. And so he's healing, and he needs a new housekeeper. And our heroine, whose name is it Elise, she has a young son. She had been let go from the girls' school that she had worked at when she had, she has a young son who is a bastard. She was abandoned by the father, and she's just really trying to do her best for him. And she ends up getting this job, but he's only going to give her 2-week trial period. But of course, he ends up absolutely falling for her. So that doesn't last too long. But this is very much like Grumpy Sunshine. There's her trying to win over the staff of this place so that she has a better time of running the place. this has small gestures and letter writing. He has a hurt hand from his injury, and so she becomes kind of like his scribe. And so there's lots of hours that they're spent together while she is transcribing things for him and he's dictating to her. And this has a very slow burn, and this actually only has like a 1.5 on my spice scale. It's very slow, but this is one of those historicals where it feels so romantic for so long before there's actual like words spoken, because of the small gestures and the way they're getting to know each other and the parts of themselves that they're sharing with each other. They're both estranged from their family in different ways. He desperately wants to get his home back. He either needs to be able to marry an heiress so he can buy his old home, or he would need to continue to work for the crown to make enough money to do this. But he doesn't know which of those he wants to choose. And another one I loved about this, because this does have class difference, I, of course, was a little nervous that it would turn into a mistress trope. But I'm happy to say that because of how the heroine was put aside previously, she is very much like, I'm not going to be anybody's mistress. And I also realize that it's doomed between us. Like, I need to stop having these feelings. But maybe I can just have one taste, you know, because that doesn't make me a mistress if it's just the one time, right? And both of these characters are so selfless. I loved watching how they did small gestures for each other, never expecting the other person to know or never expecting any credit for it. I also loved Philippe's interactions with the little boy. You know, of course, like, I'm loving the single moms. I just realized I have 3 single moms. I forgot this one was a single mom, because I have another single mom to talk about next. Like, I have a type, y'all. I have a type, and it's fierce, strong, independent single moms and the men who come in and help lift some of their burdens, but also lift them up. And this was beautiful. So yeah, this was 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook of this. It was very well performed. The accents done for Philippe, because he's French, like, oh, I just loved it. Very grumpy. He's a scarred hero. It was beautiful. I loved it. All right. And then we got one more to talk about, which I'm sure you know from the thumbnail or from my Instagram if you follow it. But I read an arc of Reckless, which comes out on June 9th or 10th. I'm not sure which. And as I've said in a couple videos before, I didn't know how I was going to feel about this one. I saw the tropes and I got really nervous. I wasn't super excited about this couple because I know so many people are like, Jen, you shouldn't have thought that, but I thought it was going to be Bo and Winter, and like that was going to be the last book, right? Because that's the last sibling in the Eaton brothers, right? So I was like, it's gonna be Bo, and he's gonna be a broken hero, and Winter is a doctor, so it's gonna be perfect. That's what I had my heart set on since I read Heartless. And after I read Powerless, and I found out what the couple was gonna be for Reckless, I'm like, oh. So I was very hesitant, and I tell that every time just because I am happy to be proven wrong so often, and I'm so happy when an author, like, knows their characters so well, right? Because, you know, this happened for me in the Stay a Spell series as well, right? Because, sorry to side note about Stay a Spell, but come on. Juliet set up all those couples from the very beginning. Like, the very beginning, we knew who the couples were going to be. And so for her to stick to that, to not be wavered by what other people would think, to not change her mind, to stick with that all the way through and to pull it off with each book, I think is amazing. Sorry. And that's how I felt with this book. So, all right. I don't want to spoil anything. I talk about this a lot more in my last weekly wrap-up that I did, because I talked about this book for like 15 minutes. But what I'll say about it within this one, I know Elsie Silver is super hyped. I know that I'm part of the hype. I know that I've given 3 out of her 4 books 6 stars at this point, and it maybe gets a little old. And not everybody feels that all of them are 6-star books, and so then they get weary of believing the hype or it doesn't work. Whatever. I don't really care if anyone else agrees or not. But I will say that Secret Baby is in my top 3 tropes that I despise / they're very rarely done right. That, of course, as I say about every trope, that the right author can tell the trope that I dislike very well. Okay? Like, they can find ways around what I think I know, okay? But one of the things I don't like is I don't like secret baby when the woman doesn't make more of an effort to tell the man, right? And I think that if there is some critique for this one, it will be that though for me, Winter's attempts to tell Theo in the beginning were good, I can see why they might feel a little weak to some people. But given who she is, what she's lived through, where she is at her life in this time, I also understand her being like, well, fine, you don't want anything to do with me? Cool, I'll be all right. And seeing how Summer and the Eaton family steps in to help her, which I knew they would, warmed my heart so much. But Theo doesn't know. And when we get to the part, which isn't super far, like we don't keep us super anxious, there's not a ton of back and forth or whatever, but when we get to the point where Theo finds out, his reaction immediately had me engaged in this story, as I knew it would, because Theo, he's a lovable golden retriever, but with possessive energy that is just everything I'm here to snatch, okay? It's everything I'm here to snatch up, okay? His reaction to finding out about his child and what Winter's been going through, I immediately am on his side. And then Winter's reaction to his reaction immediately had me on her side. And, you know, from Elsie's like author's note and from the things she said in a few like interviews so far, she was surprised by how much she felt for Winter and how much she related with her. And I gotta tell you, that's how I felt too. Winter is the heroine I relate with the most. I thought I related a lot to Willa. I'm just not quite as wild and crazy as Willa. So even though like I love her, Winter is the one I relate with the most. The saying the wrong things at the wrong times, overreacting to some things people say, choosing to be rude first so that, you know, you're not hurt by the person. I don't do all of those things now. Some of them I still do. But also there's the like, oh, somebody doesn't want something to do with me? Fine. I don't need them in my life then, without second guessing it more. And yeah, I really felt for her, and I loved her as a mom. Like, oh my God, the passion for which she wants to be a mother. And so when she's given this gift, she's like, I don't care if anyone else is on board with me. This is the child for whom I have prayed, and she's here. And so I'm going to make it work. And I feel that so much. And so I was in. And every interaction with Theo and Winter from here on out, like from when he finds out, just made me fall deeper in love. And that is why I've been posting it in certain places and people are like, oh, I think I love Theo the most. I think I love Theo more than Daddy Cade. I think that I do. Granted, I'm off the high of it right now, and Heartless was my book from last year. But Reckless, there's just something about Theo and his sunshiny, arms wide open, dive straight in, these are my girls, where he's won me completely. And I love the grumpy single dad version of Cade. Like that cranks my tractor as well. But there's also the version of Theo where it's like, you don't gotta convince me. You don't gotta over explain. These are the facts. This is what's going on. And my choice is yes, I'm in. And not only am I in on being a dad, I'm in on being a support to you and making your life as easy as possible because you've done all of this by yourself. And I'm so proud of you. And please let me help. And when Winter gets overwhelmed with that, or feels like her motherhood is maybe being threatened because it's like, you know, she's having a bad day and wants to lash out, Theo is like, you don't gotta lash out. I'm not here to encroach on your territory. I'm here to help. I don't need any help. You're right, you don't. You are completely capable of this. But let me help anyway. Go get your nails done. Go get a coffee. Go hang out with your friends. Let me spend some time with my daughter. Let me do it. Guys, Some of you have those husbands in real life. You have those spouses in real life. And you know that it's better than gold. Some of my friends have husbands like that. And those are the men that I look to for what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's great. So, all right, that's where we're wrapping up. Those are my 3 new 6-star books and a couple of 5 stars there. Thank you so much for showing up and watching this monthly wrap up for me. Again, I have all the books linked down below if you want to buy any of these. If you'd like to support me on Patreon or channel memberships, check out those links down below. I am completely fan funded here at the Book Refuge, so your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.